Get your filthy boots off my floor now!
I just wanted to see the G280, Brostra.
Did I? This is a stutter, not a jet shop, you a cattle barn. You smell like you slept with pigs.
Sir, I'm a paying customer.
You can't afford the coffee in this lobby. Take your dirty black hands off that brochure and get out before I drag you out myself.
Nobody moved. Nobody helped. One black farmer standing in a Jetso room being spit on with words by a manager half his age. But that manager had no idea the man he just called filthy owned at Wall every jet and every cent of his salary.
Let me take you back to the beginning, before the shouting, before the cameras, before Craig Dalton's world collapsed around him like a house made of wet paper. 5:15 in the morning, Statesville, North Carolina. The sky was still purple-black, and the air tasted like cold dew and red clay. Fletcher Jameson was already awake. He stood at the fence line of his 300-acre farm, pouring coffee from a dented steel thermos. The thermos had a name engraved on the side in looping cursive. Elaine, his late wife. She gave it to him 11 years ago, 2 Christmases before the cancer took her. He never bought a new one, never would. The horses came to him first. 2 quarter horses, brown and golden, pressing their noses against his palms. He spoke to them softly, called them by name, checked the water troughs, tested the temperature with his bare hand. Then the soybeans. Fletcher walked the irrigation lines row by row, boots sinking into the damp Carolina soil. He crouched down, pinched a leaf between his fingers, checked the color, nodded to himself. The crop was healthy. His foreman, a young guy named Wesley, pulled up in a side-by-side around 6. They talked about the week's harvest schedule, which fields to cut first, how the rain forecast might push things back 2 days. Nothing about this morning felt unusual. Fletcher wore what he always wore, faded Carhartt overalls, a canvas work jacket, boots so old the leather had cracked along both ankles. His hands were rough. His nails had dirt under them that soap couldn't reach. If you passed him on the road, you'd think, farmer, just a farmer. And you'd be right. He was a farmer. He loved that land more than anything except the woman who helped him buy it. But Fletcher Jameson was also something else. He was the founder and sole owner of Skyline Aviation, a private jet sales and charter company with 3 showroom locations across the Southeast. His fleet was valued at over $120 million. He built the company from nothing after selling a tech logistics startup he'd created in his 30s. But here's what made Fletcher different from every other rich man in the Carolinas. Nobody knew. His name didn't appear on a single public document. No magazine profiles, no conference panels, no Instagram posts with champagne and leather seats. His attorney, Harold Jennings, handled all corporate visibility. Fletcher signed the checks. Harold shook the hands. Fletcher wanted it that way. He didn't trust wealth that needed an audience. So why was Fletcher Jameson, a man who avoided his own showrooms like church on a Monday, driving to Charlotte today? 2 phone calls. That's why. 2 black families had contacted Skyline Aviation's corporate office in the past month. Both told the same story. They walked into the Charlotte showroom dressed casually. Within minutes, they were followed, watched, questioned, and then, politely, firmly, asked to leave. One family said the manager told them the showroom was by appointment only. It wasn't. It never had been. The other family said the same manager looked at their teenage son and said, "Please don't touch the displays. Those cost more than your house." The manager in both complaints? Craig Dalton. Fletcher read those complaints at his kitchen table, the thermos sitting next to his elbow. He read them twice. Then he picked up his phone and called Harold. "Don't send anyone," Fletcher said. "I'm going myself." Harold paused. "Fletch, you sure? If he recognizes you—" "Look at me, Harold." Fletcher glanced down at his overalls, the mud on his boots. "Nobody's going to recognize me." Now let me tell you about Craig Dalton. Craig was 36, hired 14 months ago to manage Skyline Aviation's Charlotte location. On paper, solid resume, clean record, good sales numbers. But Craig had a habit. a nasty, quiet habit that never showed up in quarterly reports. He screened customers by skin color. If you were white and wearing a polo, Craig greeted you at the door with a handshake and a smile. If you were black, brown, or anything Craig decided looked out of place, he watched you, followed you, and found a reason to make you leave. 3 complaints had been filed before the 2 families called corporate. Craig buried all 3, deleted the emails, told the staff it was handled. He saw that showroom as his kingdom, and he decided who was worthy of walking through the gates. Today, the king was about to meet the man who built the castle. The Charlotte skyline was still hazy with morning fog when Fletcher's mud-caked Ford F250 rumbled into the Skyline Aviation parking lot. The truck looked like it had driven through a swamp. Red clay streaked up the wheel wells, a cracked taillight held together with electrical tape. The bed was loaded with fence posts and a roll of barbed wire. Fletcher killed the engine, sat there for a moment, took a long sip from the thermos, Elaine's thermos, and looked through the windshield at the building he owned. Floor-to-ceiling glass, polished steel letters spelling Skyline Aviation across the entrance. Through the windows he could see the showroom floor, white marble, soft lighting, a real Cessna Citation cockpit section mounted on a raised platform like a sculpture in a museum. He built this place, chose the architect, approved the floor plan, signed the construction loan. And now he was about to walk in like a stranger. Fletcher climbed out of the truck. He didn't change his clothes, didn't wash his hands, didn't take off the faded ball cap with the fraying brim. He wanted Craig Dalton to see exactly what those 2 black families saw when they walked through that door. A person who didn't look like money. The glass doors slid open. Cold air hit his face. The showroom smelled like new leather and fresh espresso. Soft jazz played through invisible speakers. A scale model of a Gulfstream G650 rotated slowly on a pedestal near the entrance, catching the light like a jewel. Fletcher stopped, picked up a brochure from the display rack near the door. Gulfstream G280. He opened it casually, scanning the specs. Avionics suite, range, cabin pressure altitude. He knew every number on that page. He'd approved the purchase of 4 G280s for the fleet last quarter, but he read it like a man seeing it for the first time. A voice came from his left, warm, genuine. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Skyline Aviation. Can I help you with anything?" Nora Beckett, early 30s, dark hair pulled into a low ponytail. She wore a navy blazer and a name tag that was slightly crooked. She'd been working at the Charlotte showroom for 3 months. Still new enough to treat every person who walked in like they mattered. Fletcher smiled. "Morning. Just browsing for now, thank you." "Of course, take your time." Nora gestured toward the display floor. "If you have any questions about the models, I'm right over here." Fletcher nodded. He moved deeper into the showroom, stopped in front of the Cessna cockpit display, leaned in, studied the instrument panel. His fingers hovered over the glass, close but not touching. He asked Nora a question about the avionics package, then another about cabin altitude systems, then a third about range performance at high altitudes. Nora's eyebrows lifted slightly. This man in the muddy boots knew more about aircraft than half the pilots she'd met. She started pulling up detailed spec sheets on her tablet. That's when Craig Dalton noticed. He was standing near the back of the showroom, behind a glass partition that separated the consultation suites from the main floor. He had a ceramic mug of coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He'd been scrolling through Instagram, checking his hair in the reflection of the glass. Then he looked up, and he saw Fletcher. His eyes moved fast, top to bottom, cap, overalls, dirt on the jacket, mud on the boots, black skin. Craig's jaw tightened. He set his coffee down hard enough to slosh it over the rim. He walked across the showroom floor like a man on a mission. His Italian loafers clicked against the marble with each step. Sharp, deliberate. The sound of a man who believed he owned the room. He stepped directly between Nora and Fletcher, physically. His shoulder blocked her out. He didn't acknowledge her, didn't look at her, just cut her off like she wasn't there. "Can I help you?" Craig said. But it wasn't a question. It was a warning. Fletcher looked at him calmly. just looking at the G280. Craig glanced at the brochure in Fletcher's hand, then back at Fletcher's face. His lips pressed together into a thin, hard line. These aircraft start at $3.5 million. Craig let the number hang in the air like a wall. Are you sure you're in the right place? Fletcher didn't blink. I'm aware of the pricing. Craig tilted his head. His eyes dropped to Fletcher's boots, to the dried mud flaking off onto the white marble. He stared at it like Fletcher had tracked in roadkill. Nora. Craig didn't turn around, just snapped her name over his shoulder. Go help the couple in Suite B. Nora hesitated. They're not here yet, Craig. Their appointment isn't until Suite B. Now! His voice cut the air. Nora flinched. She glanced at Fletcher, an apology in her eyes, and walked away.
Now it was just the two of them.
Craig stepped closer, lowered his voice, but not enough. A couple browsing near the Cessna display could still hear every word. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. Craig folded his arms across his chest. Our clientele has certain expectations. We can't have just anyone walking around touching the displays, especially someone who looks like they just came from... He waved his hand at Fletcher's overalls. Whatever that is. Fletcher said nothing. His face was still. His eyes were steady. So here's what's going to happen. Craig pointed at the glass doors. You're going to walk back out through those doors, get in your little truck, and go back to wherever you came from. On what grounds? Fletcher asked. His voice was low, even, like a man who'd already decided how this would end. Craig blinked. He wasn't used to pushback, not from someone who looked like this. On the grounds that I'm the manager of this showroom and I'm telling you to leave. This showroom is open to the public, Fletcher said. There's no appointment required. I saw the sign on the door. Craig's neck flushed red. His nostrils flared. He didn't have a good answer, so he made one up. We're running a private showing today. Invitation only. And you... He looked Fletcher up and down one more time. You definitely weren't invited. There was no private showing. There never had been. Nora knew it. The couple near the Cessna knew it. Even the security camera above them knew it. Fletcher nodded slowly, like he was cataloging every word for later. I'd like to speak with whoever is above you, Fletcher said. Craig almost laughed, a short, sharp breath through his nose. I am the authority here. There's no one above me in this building. Fletcher held his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, typed a short message, hit send. Craig watched the phone. Something shifted in his expression. Not fear, not yet, but a flicker, a crack in the armor. What are you doing? Craig asked. Contacting someone. Who? Fletcher put the phone back in his pocket. You'll find out. Craig's jaw clenched. His hands dropped to his sides, fingers curling into fists. He wasn't used to someone being calmer than him, quieter than him, more in control than him, and it made him furious. Sir, Craig's voice was louder now. The couple by the Cessna turned their heads. I'm not going to ask you again. Leave this showroom, right now. Fletcher didn't move. He stood exactly where he was, feet planted, thermos in one hand, brochure in the other, like a man standing in his own living room. Because that's exactly what he was doing. Craig's face went from red to dark red. He spun on his heel, walked to the front reception desk, picked up the phone, and dialed 911. Yes, I need an officer at Skyline Aviation on South Boulevard. I have a trespasser on the premises. He's refusing to leave and he's becoming aggressive. He said aggressive. Fletcher hadn't raised his voice once, hadn't lifted a hand, hadn't taken a single step toward Craig. But Craig said aggressive. Nora was standing in the hallway behind the partition. She heard the call. Her face went white. She pressed her back against the wall, hand over her mouth. She knew what she'd just witnessed. A black man being calm and polite, and a white manager calling the police and using the word aggressive like a weapon. Fletcher heard it too. He didn't react. He took one more sip from the thermos, set it gently on the display counter next to the G280 brochure, and waited. 8 minutes. That's how long it took for the blue and white cruiser to pull into the Skyline Aviation parking lot. Fletcher saw the lights first, red and blue, flashing through the floor-to-ceiling glass, bouncing off the polished marble like a silent alarm. No siren, just the lights, spinning, cutting through the showroom like a warning no one asked for. Officer Ray Coleman stepped out of the cruiser. Mid-40s, broad shoulders, buzz cut. He adjusted his belt, the one carrying handcuffs, a crackling radio, and a holstered weapon, and walked through the glass doors like a man who had already picked a side. Craig was waiting at the entrance, jacket buttoned, spine straight. His whole body had shifted into performance mode, the concerned, responsible manager doing his civic duty. Nothing like the man who 2 minutes ago told a customer he smelled like livestock. "Officer, thank you for coming so quickly." Craig's voice was smooth, polished, almost charming. "That's him, the one in the overalls by the display counter." He pointed at Fletcher the way someone points at a stain on a white shirt. "He came in about 20 minutes ago, refused to leave when I asked multiple times. Honestly, officer, I think he might be casing the place." Casing the place. Let those words sit for a second. A man reading a brochure in a public showroom, standing still, speaking softly, and the manager of that showroom just told a police officer, on the record, that this man might be planning a robbery, because of what he was wearing, because of what he looked like. Officer Coleman nodded once. He crossed the showroom floor toward Fletcher. His boots were heavy on the marble. Each step echoed like a slow drum beat. The leather of his duty belt creaked with every stride. Fletcher watched him come. He didn't straighten up, didn't shove his hands in his pockets, didn't shift his weight. He'd been through this calculation before. A black man standing in a white space with a uniformed officer approaching. He knew what one wrong flinch could cost him. One hand moved too fast, one word too loud, one breath taken the wrong way. So he stood perfectly still. "Sir, Officer Coleman, Charlotte PD." The officer stopped 3 feet away, close enough to reach. "We received a call about a trespassing situation. Can I see some identification, please?" "Of course, officer." Fletcher moved slowly, deliberately. He reached into his back pocket with 2 fingers, just 2, and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He slid out his driver's license and held it forward. Coleman took it, studying the photo, studied Fletcher's face, flipped the card over, studied the back, looked at Fletcher again. "Wait here." He walked back to his cruiser, ran the license through dispatch. The radio crackled and hissed through the open door. Fletcher stood alone in the center of the showroom, while every pair of eyes in the building watched him like he was standing in a police lineup. The couple near the Cessna display whispered behind their hands. The woman shook her head. Not in sympathy, in gossip. The man kept his phone raised, recording everything with the casual detachment of someone watching a reality show. A sales associate near the back pretended to organize brochures. His hands were shaking. 3 minutes passed. 3 minutes of Fletcher standing motionless under fluorescent lights, while strangers decided what kind of man he was without asking a single question. Coleman came back. His expression was flat, unreadable. "The record is clean. No warrants. No outstanding violations. Not even a traffic citation." Craig blinked. His left eye twitched. Just barely, but it was there. He'd been expecting a hit, a flag, something, anything to validate the call, to prove he was right. But Fletcher Jameson's record was cleaner than a hospital floor. That should have ended it. Clean record. No evidence of trespassing, no aggression, no crime. No reason to still be standing here having this conversation. But Craig Dalton was not a man who accepted being wrong. "Officer," Craig stepped forward. He lowered his voice just enough to sound grave, concerned, responsible. "I appreciate you running that, but I'd like him searched." Coleman's brow creased. "Searched for what?" "He's been walking around the showroom unsupervised, touching display models, handling materials." Craig paused. Let the implication build. "These aircraft components are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I just want to make sure nothing walked out of here in those pockets." He looked at Fletcher's overalls when he said, "those pockets." looked at them like they were stuffed with stolen goods. Fletcher's jaw tightened. A muscle in his cheek flexed once. For the first time since he walked through those doors, something stirred behind his eyes. Not anger, not exactly. Something older than anger. Heavier. The kind of weight a man carries when he's been here before and knows he'll be here again. Officer Coleman hesitated. He looked at Fletcher's calm face, looked at Craig's confident posture. He knew the law. He had no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion, no witness to any theft. Nothing. Legally, ethically, constitutionally, he had nothing. But Craig was the manager. Craig made the call. Craig was white, wearing an expensive suit, standing in a building that looked like it belonged to people who looked like Craig. "Sir," Coleman said to Fletcher, "would you be willing to consent to a voluntary pat-down, just to settle this and let everyone move on?" Fletcher's voice came back level, measured, not a single crack. "No, I do not consent to a search. You have no probable cause, and I'm exercising my Fourth Amendment right." Craig pounced. "There it is!" He turned to Coleman with theatrical disbelief, eyes wide, palms up. "You hear that? An innocent man doesn't refuse a search. He's hiding something, officer. That should tell you everything." "I'm hiding nothing," Fletcher said. "Refusing a search is not evidence of guilt. It's a constitutional right. There's a very clear difference." Craig didn't even acknowledge the words. He turned to the couple near the Cessna display, raised his voice so the whole showroom could hear. "You all saw this, right? He refused. A man who looks like that in a place like this refusing to be searched." He shook his head slowly, theatrically. "Draw your own conclusions." The man in sunglasses lowered his phone for a second, shifted his weight, looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. The woman beside him took a sip of her sparkling water and stared at the ceiling. Silence. The heaviest kind. The kind that suffocates. Craig turned back to Fletcher, and something shifted. The act fell away. The smooth voice disappeared. The professional mask crumbled like dry paint off a rotten wall. What came out next wasn't a manager protecting his showroom. It was something that had been living inside Craig Dalton for a very long time. Something ugly. Something he usually kept behind closed doors. He stepped forward. Close. Too close. Close enough that Fletcher could smell his cologne. Sharp, chemical, suffocating. Craig's upper lip curled back from his teeth. "You people." His voice dropped. Low, almost a whisper, but in that silent showroom everyone heard it like a gunshot. "You people always think you can just walk in anywhere, flash some attitude, puff up your chest, act like you belong." He leaned in closer. "You don't belong here. You have never belonged here, and you never will." The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The jazz music playing through the speakers sounded obscene against the silence. Fletcher didn't flinch. His breathing stayed even. His hands stayed at his sides. But something behind his eyes locked into place. A steel door closing. A decision made. Nora Beckett was standing behind the glass partition pressed against the wall. Her hand was trembling. Her phone was in her palm, screen facing the showroom. The red recording dot had been blinking for 6 minutes. Then Craig did the one thing that turned this from an insult into something no apology would ever fix. He reached across the display counter, wrapped his fingers around Fletcher's thermos, the dented steel thermos with Elaine's name engraved on the side in her own looping handwriting. The last Christmas gift she ever gave him. The one he carried every morning for 11 years. The one he held while he watched the sun come up over the farm she helped him buy. Craig held it between 2 fingers, dangled it like a piece of trash. "You're not leaving your farm junk on my counter." He walked to the waste bin near the reception desk, held the thermos over the opening, looked Fletcher dead in the eyes, and dropped it. The thermos hit the bottom of the metal bin with a hollow, ringing clang that echoed through every corner of that showroom. The sound bounced off the glass walls, the marble floor, the polished display cases, and settled into Fletcher's chest like a bullet. His hand trembled. The hand that had held that thermos every single morning since Elaine died. A single tremor ran from his fingertips up through his forearm. His eyes glistened. Just barely. Just enough. He didn't shout, didn't lunge, didn't give Craig the satisfaction of a reaction he could use against him. Instead, Fletcher looked at Craig, held his gaze, let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then he spoke. 5 words, barely above a whisper. "You're going to remember this." Craig barked out a laugh, sharp, ugly, the laugh of a man who believed he was untouchable. Was that a threat? He spun toward Coleman. "Officer, you heard that. He just threatened me. I want that on record." Coleman shifted his weight. He looked at Fletcher, at the trash can, at the thermos sitting at the bottom, at Craig's smirking face. And he did nothing. The couple near the Cessna did nothing. The sales associate in the back did nothing. Nobody in that showroom did a single thing. One black man, standing alone in a room full of silent witnesses, watching the last piece of his wife disappear into a garbage can, and not one soul had the courage to say, "That's enough." Outside in the parking lot, a black Mercedes S-Class glided into the space beside Fletcher's mud-covered F250. The engine went quiet. The driver's door opened slowly. Harold Jennings stepped out. Gray 3-piece suit, burgundy silk tie, Italian leather briefcase in his left hand. He straightened his cuffs, adjusted his collar, checked his watch. Then he looked through the glass walls of the showroom, saw Fletcher standing alone, saw the officer, saw Craig's posture, chest puffed, chin high, grinning like a man who had just won. Harold's expression didn't change, but his grip on the briefcase tightened until his knuckles went pale. He walked toward the glass doors, slow, steady. Every step is deliberate. The doors slid open. Every head in the showroom turned. Harold Jennings walked in like he owned the air he was breathing. Gray 3-piece suit pressed to perfection. Burgundy silk tie catching the showroom lights. Italian leather shoes that clicked against the marble with a sound that meant money. Real money. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Craig saw him immediately. And just like that, like flipping a light switch, the man who had just thrown a dead woman's thermos in the trash transformed into a smiling, eager host. He straightened his tie, smoothed his jacket, took 3 quick steps toward Harold with his hand already extended. "Welcome to Skyline Aviation, sir. I'm Craig Dalton, showroom manager. How can I assist you today?" His voice was warm. His smile was wide. His eyes were bright. The same mouth that said, "You people," 30 seconds ago was now dripping with hospitality. Because Harold was wearing the right suit, driving the right car. And in Craig's mind, he looked like he belonged. Harold didn't take his hand, didn't even glance at it. He looked past Craig's outstretched fingers like they weren't there. "I'm not here to buy anything." Craig's smile flickered. His hand hung in the air for one awkward second before dropping back to his side. "I'm here with him." Harold tilted his head toward Fletcher, the man in the muddy boots, the man Craig had spent the last 30 minutes trying to erase from the building. Craig's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Harold walked past him, walked straight to Fletcher. The 2 men exchanged a look, the kind of look that passes between people who've known each other for decades. No words needed. Then Harold turned around, faced Craig, faced Officer Coleman, faced the couple with their phones, faced the entire room. He set his briefcase on the display counter, unlatched both locks. The clicks echoed like 2 gunshots in the silence. He opened the case and pulled out a manila folder, thick, heavy, official. "Mr. Dalton." Harold's voice was calm, almost gentle, the way a surgeon speaks before delivering a diagnosis. "Allow me to introduce the man you just called filthy, the man you told to go back to his barn, the man whose personal property you threw in the garbage." He laid the first document on the counter. Articles of Incorporation. Skyline Aviation, LLC, filed with the state of North Carolina. "This is Fletcher Jameson." He laid down the second document. Certificate of Ownership, sole proprietor. He is the founder of Skyline Aviation. A third document. Corporate headshot. Fletcher in a tailored charcoal suit, standing in front of a Gulfstream with the Skyline Aviation logo behind him. The same man, same face, same steady eyes, just different clothes. He is the sole owner of this company. Every aircraft in this showroom, every square foot of this building, every piece of furniture, every light fixture, every display model you've been pretending to guard. Harold paused, let it land. Including your desk, including your parking space, including... He glanced at Craig's name tag. Your paycheck. Craig's face didn't just go pale, it went gray. The color drained out of him like someone had pulled a plug. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His legs locked. His hands, the same hands that had grabbed Elaine's thermos, hung limp at his sides, trembling. Officer Coleman took one full step backward. His hand dropped away from his belt. His eyes moved from the documents to Fletcher to the corporate headshot and back again. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. The man in sunglasses stopped recording, lowered his phone slowly. His face went blank. The woman beside him set down her sparkling water. Her hand was shaking. The showroom was so quiet you could hear the jazz music whispering through the speakers. So quiet you could hear Craig Dalton breathing, fast, shallow, ragged. The breathing of a man watching his life crack in half. Fletcher hadn't moved, hadn't raised his voice, hadn't changed his posture. He stood exactly where he'd been standing for the last 30 minutes, calm, rooted, immovable. Now he spoke. 2 black families came to this showroom in the past month. They were followed, profiled, humiliated, told they didn't belong. Fletcher's voice was low and even. Every word landed like a stone dropped into still water. I came here today to see if their complaints were true. He looked at Craig. It's worse than what they described. Craig's mouth finally moved. Mr. Jameson, if I had known who you were, I would never have... Stop. Fletcher held up one hand. The word cut the air like a blade. That sentence, right there. That's the whole problem. He stepped forward. One step, just one. But Craig flinched backward like he'd been shoved. You would have treated me differently if you knew I was rich, if you knew I was the owner, if you knew I had power. Fletcher's eyes didn't blink. Which means the way you treated me today. The insults, the threats, calling the police, throwing away my wife's thermos. That's how you treat every black person who walks through that door without a suit and a Mercedes. Craig had no answer. His mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled out of water. Fletcher turned to Officer Coleman. Officer, I want your badge number and a copy of your body camera footage from today. Coleman nodded, fast, almost desperately. Yes, sir, of course. Fletcher turned back to Craig. His voice dropped to a level so quiet that everyone in the room had to hold their breath to hear it. You're fired. Effective right now. Security will escort you out. He paused. And Craig, go get my thermos out of that trash can, now. Craig didn't move. His legs were locked to the marble floor like they'd been cemented there. His eyes were glassy. His mouth hung open around a word that would never come. The thermos, Craig. Fletcher's voice was quiet, final. Go get it. Now. Craig's body obeyed before his pride could stop it. He walked to the trash can. His Italian loafers, the ones that had clicked so powerfully across the marble an hour ago, now dragged against the floor like dead weight. He reached in. His fingers closed around the dented steel. He pulled it out, and for the first time he saw the engraving. Elaine, looping cursive, worn from 11 years of mournings. Something shifted behind Craig's eyes. Not remorse, not yet. Realization. He hadn't just insulted a customer, he'd thrown a dead woman's last gift in the garbage in front of her husband. He carried the thermos back with both hands. His fingers rattled against his wedding ring. Fletcher took it without looking at Craig. He ran his thumb across the engraving, across her name, wiped the dust off with his sleeve, set it gently on the counter. Mr. Jameson! Craig's voice splintered. Please! I made a terrible mistake. I have a mortgage, 2 kids. My daughter just started middle school. If you could. The two families you humiliated have mortgages, too. Fletcher didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. They have children, too. Their kids watch their parents get treated like criminals. Did you think about their kids, Craig? Craig's chin dropped to his chest. No answer. There was no answer. Two security guards in black polos walked through the glass doors. One carried a flat cardboard box, the kind you get when your career ends in the middle of a Tuesday. Escort Mr. Dalton to his office, Fletcher said. 15 minutes. Personal belongings only. Access card, company phone, and parking pass stay at the front desk. Craig looked at the box, looked at the guards, looked at Fletcher one last time. Please, he whispered. Fletcher said nothing. Craig turned, walked between the two guards with his shoulders caved inward and his chin on his chest. The jacket that looked so sharp an hour ago now hung off his frame like it belonged to someone who no longer existed. The man near the Cessna display put his phone away. He walked toward Fletcher with his hands in his pockets. Sir, I saw everything, from the beginning, the way he talked to you, the thermos, all of it. He swallowed. If you need a witness, statement, deposition, anything, I'll do it. I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry. Fletcher nodded once. I appreciate that. Harold will take your contact information. Then Nora stepped forward. She crossed the showroom on legs that barely held her. Her phone was in her outstretched hand, screen facing Fletcher. Tears were already running down both cheeks. Mr. Jameson, I recorded 6 minutes. Everything. His words, the thermos, the you people comment. It's all here. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry I didn't step in. He told me to leave and I should have stayed. I should have. Nora. Fletcher's voice softened for the first time all morning. You hit record. That took more courage than anyone else in this room showed today, and it's going to matter more than you know. He gave her a moment to breathe. Starting Monday, you're the acting manager of this showroom, with a raise. One rule. Every person who walks through that door gets treated with dignity. No exceptions. Nora pressed her hand over her mouth. Couldn't speak, just nodded. Fletcher turned to Officer Coleman. The officer was standing near the entrance. His shoulders had dropped. His jaw was tight. He looked like a man trying to disappear. Officer, you responded to a call about an aggressive trespasser. When you walked in, I was standing still, holding a brochure, voice never raised. Fletcher paused. Did I look aggressive to you? No, sir. Then why did you ask to search me? Silence. 5 seconds. 10. The honest answer was the one neither of them needed to say out loud. I'm sorry, sir. Coleman's voice was raw. I let him dictate the situation. That's on me. Review your bias training, officer. Not because someone ordered you to, because today showed you why it exists. Fletcher pulled out a small notebook, wrote down the badge number. I'm filing a formal complaint with Charlotte PD tonight. Coleman nodded slowly, turned, walked out without another word. He sat in his cruiser for a long time before starting the engine. The video hit the internet at 9:46 that night. The customer near the Cessna, the man in the polo and sunglasses, uploaded his recording to Twitter with a single caption. Black farmer gets kicked out of a jet shop he secretly owns. Watch what happens next. By midnight, it had 400,000 views. By noon the next day, 2.3 million. By the end of the second day, 6 million views, 14,000 quote tweets, and the #1 trending topic in the United States, #Fletcher Jameson. But the customer's video was only half the story. Nora Beckett's recording was the kill shot. 6 minutes of uncut footage, crystal clear audio, Craig Dalton's face fully visible, every word he said captured in high definition. The insults, the sneering, the you people comment, the thermos being dropped into the trash can. You could hear the metal clang. You could see Fletcher's hand tremble. When Nora's video surfaced on the second day, the internet didn't just react, it erupted. Every major news outlet picked it up within hours. CNN ran it during prime time. NBC led their evening broadcast with it. The Washington Post published a long-form feature with the headline, "He built the company, they threw him out." Tamara Wells, a journalist from WBTV Charlotte, was the first reporter to contact Fletcher directly. She requested an exclusive sit-down interview. Fletcher agreed, but not for himself. "I'll do the interview," he told her, "but I want those two families in the story, the ones who came before me, the ones nobody believed." The two black families, the ones whose complaints Craig had buried, were interviewed side by side. One mother described how her 14-year-old son was told not to touch the displays because they cost more than your house. She said her son didn't speak for 3 days after that visit, just sat in his room, staring at the wall. The other family described how Craig told them the showroom was appointment only and stood at the door with his arms crossed until they left. Their 8-year-old daughter asked in the car on the way home, "Daddy, are we not allowed in nice places?" Those two quotes traveled further than any video clip. They were printed on protest signs, shared in classroom discussions, read aloud on the Senate floor during a hearing on consumer discrimination. Meanwhile, Skyline Aviation's legal team and HR department launched a full internal audit of the Charlotte location. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Craig Dalton hadn't just discriminated against two families, he had buried 9 formal complaints from customers of color over his 14-month tenure. 9. Each one filed through the proper channels. Each one deleted, dismissed, or rerouted before it ever reached corporate. 3 other staff members were found to have witnessed discriminatory incidents and failed to report them. All 3 were placed on immediate administrative leave pending further investigation. The Charlotte Police Department opened its own internal affairs review. Officer Coleman's body camera footage confirmed everything. Fletcher standing still, speaking calmly, never raising his voice or making a threatening gesture. The footage also captured Coleman asking for a search without probable cause, directly after Craig's baseless accusation. Coleman was placed on desk duty. The department issued a statement promising a thorough and transparent review of the responding officer's conduct. But the real reckoning came in a courtroom. The 2 original black families, joined by Fletcher Jameson, filed a civil rights lawsuit under Title II of the Civil Rights Act and Section 1981 of federal law, which protects all persons from racial discrimination in making and enforcing contracts, including the right to browse and purchase goods in a place of business. Craig Dalton was named personally in the suit, not just as a former employee, as an individual defendant. Judge Catherine Moore presided. The case drew national media coverage. Cameras lined the hallway outside the courtroom. Reporters from 6 states waited for a statement. Craig's defense was simple. He repeated it 3 times on the stand. "I treat all customers the same. This was a misunderstanding." His attorney tried to frame the incident as a single bad day, a lapse in judgment, an overworked manager under pressure. But the evidence buried him. Nora's 6-minute video was played in full for the courtroom. You could hear a pin drop. One juror covered her mouth. Another shook his head slowly, eyes closed for the entire duration. The 9 buried complaints were entered into evidence, each one read aloud. Each one describing the same pattern. Black and brown customers followed, questioned, pressured to leave. The customer who witnessed the confrontation took the stand. His testimony was direct and devastating. He described Craig's tone, his body language, the moment he threw the thermos in the trash. He said, "I've never seen a human being treat another human being like that, and I stood there and let it happen. That's something I'll carry for the rest of my life." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. The verdict was unanimous. Craig Dalton was ordered to pay $250,000 in compensatory damages, split among the 3 plaintiff families. He was sentenced to 200 hours of community service at a nonprofit serving underprivileged communities in Charlotte. He was required to complete a certified anti-discrimination education program, and he was barred from working in any customer-facing luxury retail position for 5 years. When the verdict was read, Craig sat motionless. His attorney put a hand on his shoulder. Craig didn't react. He stared at the table in front of him like a man watching his entire life sink to the bottom of a lake. The Charlotte Police Department issued a formal public apology to Fletcher Jameson and the two families. Officer Coleman completed an enhanced bias training program and was permanently reassigned from patrol to administrative duties. Fletcher held one press conference after the verdict. Just one. He stood behind a podium in a plain navy suit. No overalls, no muddy boots, but the same calm, steady eyes. A reporter asked him how it felt to win. Fletcher leaned into the microphone, paused, and said the words that would be quoted in newspapers, textbooks, and graduation speeches for years to come. I didn't reveal who I was to embarrass anyone. I revealed who I was because no one should have to prove they're rich to be treated like a human being. The room went silent. Then the cameras started flashing. Craig Dalton's LinkedIn profile was deleted that evening. His name became unsearchable in the aviation industry. Every recruiter, every hiring manager, every company in the Southeast knew his face and his story. Not because he was famous, because he became a warning. 6 months later, nothing about Fletcher Jameson's morning had changed. 5:15, Statesville, North Carolina. The sky still purple-black, the air still tasting like cold dew and red Carolina clay. He stood at the fence line with the thermos in his hand. Same dented steel, same engraving. Elaine. The cursive had faded a little more since that day in the showroom, but it was still there, still hers. The horses came first, brown and golden, pressing warm noses against his palms. He spoke to them softly, checked the troughs. The farm was quiet. The world was still. Fletcher Jameson was still a farmer. That never changed. That was never the point. But 40 miles south, inside the Skyline Aviation Charlotte showroom, something had changed forever. A framed sign hung beside the entrance, black letters on white glass. Simple, impossible to miss. Every person who walks through this door deserves dignity. No exceptions. Nora Beckett chose those words herself. She'd become the youngest showroom manager in Skyline Aviation's history. Her first act was building a new customer experience program from scratch. No dress code screenings, no profiling, no assumptions. Every person who walked in, suits or overalls, loafers or muddy boots, received the same greeting, the same respect. She trained her staff personally, sat in on every customer interaction for the first 2 months, posted the two families' testimonies on the break room wall, not as punishment, as a reminder. The scholarship fund Fletcher established after the trial, $2 million, sent its first class of 15 students to flight school that fall, all from underrepresented communities across the Carolinas. One of them was the 14-year-old son from the first family Craig had humiliated. He was 16 now. He'd told his mother he wanted to be a pilot the night the verdict aired on the news. She called Skyline Aviation the next morning. Fletcher approved his application personally. Now let me tell you what happened to Craig Dalton. He lost the house first, couldn't keep up with the mortgage after the $250 judgment. His wife filed for divorce 3 months later, took the kids to her mother's house in Raleigh. Craig moved into a one-bedroom apartment off the interstate. Thin walls, a parking lot that smelled like gasoline. He applied to 31 jobs in 4 months. Retail, dealerships, hospitality. Every application is rejected. His name had become a search result no employer wanted near their company. He found work at a car wash off Independence Boulevard. $11.50 an hour, standing in the sun, drying windshields with a chamois cloth. The same hands that grabbed Elaine's thermos and dropped it in the trash now wiped water spots off strangers' cars for tips. No one felt sorry for him. This story isn't going to ask you to. Some consequences aren't tragedies, they're receipts. On a Tuesday evening in October, Fletcher sat at his kitchen table. The farmhouse was quiet, just the hum of the refrigerator and crickets outside the window. The thermos sat on the shelf above the stove, right next to a framed photograph of Elaine. She was laughing in the photo, head tilted back, eyes shut, the kind of laugh that fills a whole room. Fletcher looked at the thermos, looked at the photo. "We did all right today, Elaine." He said it quietly, the way you talk to someone who's gone but never really left. Then he turned off the kitchen light and went to bed. If this story hit you somewhere deep, drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been judged before someone knew who you really were? Like this video if you believe respect shouldn't come with a price tag. Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every week we bring you stories where justice doesn't just win. It shows up when nobody expects it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Sometimes one story changes the way a person sees the world. And remember, you never know who's standing in front of you. Treat them like they matter, because they do.